So the work that I offer is embedded in nature. That feels really important, and I just want to speak to that because I live in the middle of a forest. Like, well, hey, really great for me, really easy, da da da. But there was a period of time. I had a reminder. There was a period of time a few years ago where I was living in this flat, and it was about it was quite a few stories up, and it wasn't a nature bound flat. It was a flat in the city, and I was waiting to move to this place, and I was there for a whole winter, and I knew I sat there just feeling really like, just what's the point? What's the point in any of it? Why am I doing what I'm doing? This is all just pointless. It's just shit. I just lost the juice, to sort of do what I'm doing. And I would look out the window and I thought, I know that I am 2 minutes away from sitting under a tree. And I know that if I go and sit under that tree, I'll feel better. I know that. Could I get off the sofa? No. I couldn't. I was literally frozen on that sofa, even though I knew that I would feel better. Now, there's plenty of people who don't even know they'd feel better with that. So
Yeah.
that's the structure. Do you see what I mean? That's the juxtapose that we're in. So it's all
And
very
you're
well
saying
going,
this
yeah,
as an example, like a few years ago. So when you're already very much on this path and doing this
exactly,
work.
exactly. So it's, yeah, I see like what we have ahead of us.
It speaks really to the power of that collective energy, and how it can really strip away the inspiration, the vision,
Totally.
the ability to do the things that are beneficial for us and beneficial for our contribution on a wider level. And I feel like it's really important to highlight that, because there's so much, especially I think when people know like what it is that they need, it can create a lot of shame to not be able to access it, not to be able to get off the sofa and walk 2 minutes to that tree.
Well, and also just not have the luxury of time to do that.
Yeah.
I get up at 5 a.m., I'm straight to work, deal with the kids, come home, go to my third job, all of that. It's like, well, yeah, that's all well and lovely, go and sit under a tree. Well, yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
So for me, it's about the micro. It's almost like working with it in the homeopathic principle. So, I get up, I got to go out, I get on the bus, I go to work. And where do I put my focus? So I can put my focus on it's all shit, and I'm just right up against everything. Even as I sit on this bus, I'm up against all the stuff. And I can turn my focus for a moment to the clouds, or to a little bird that's landed on the wall, or to a leaf on the tree. Like there's always something, however small it is, that we can, it's like having a little chocolate biscuit for the soul. It's just a little moment where I can remember something. And I do believe we all can take those moments, whatever is happening in our day, to do those small, tiny, tiny acts, and to notice what happens in my body when I do that. What happens in my psyche? Does it impact the next 5 minutes? Does it impact how I feel about my day? Does it impact in a positive way whatever it is I'm trying to navigate in the next 2 hours, 3 hours, day, night? So rather than those big, massive, right, yeah, it's all very well. I'd love to live in the village. I'd love to live in a leafy glade. I'd love to be doing the work that I was born to do. I'd love to, not feel in a minority and be oppressed. And I'd love, these small things. It's like where's the common ground where we can all say we're all humans and find something that meets the soul in that essential way. And I do believe that when we do that, there's an energetic thread that plugs us back into each other, a bit like the root systems of the trees in the forest. It's like when there's one vulnerable tree, the other trees feed that tree, and prioritize that tree. Like, wouldn't that be amazing if we could take that principle on?
Yeah, it's so beautiful. I'm really interested in how we bridge these beautiful, beautiful visions with this dense reality. Like, I feel like more than ever, that feels really strong. This thing that you're sharing about, you know, how the trees and through the mycelium and everything, they look after the weaker ones within that community. Something that I've come across time and time again in spiritualities, especially, is that that's often not what happens. And that often when somebody's really struggling with something that has like happened to them, or even something that where they've ended up playing an archetype within that community, what normally happens is exile. What normally happens is, or what happens now is a very complicated, like, psychological analysis of that person and why they have created it, and they're, you know, and they have this disorder and that disorder, and they're this and they're that, and they're being a victim, whatever it is, you know, or they're a narcissist, or that it's just, and that's why, and I find it really interesting. So I've been part of a lot of communities and I've seen this happen time and time again. And I've seen it happen in community houses and land-based communities, and even in some of the areas where people are moving to because they want a certain kind of, you know, they want this thing, they want this belonging, they want shared values and shared ways of being.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, because there's something in the human nature that we're living, and I know that's different to the true nature that you're talking about. I'm curious, because I imagine that you have seen a lot as well, and I'm curious as to why this happens and how we evolve our notion of community to be more like trees.
I'm literally trying not to jump up and down and do a dance in the living room. I'm so glad we got here. Because yes, to everything you said, and having spent my whole life in community or seeking community or supporting to communities to deal with the rupture that's happening in communities, because you're right, you know, how many people are, oh, I really want to live in community, really want to be on a piece of land, or just want to be doing yoga every day with all my friends, and you know, it'll all be beautiful. And like you say, it isn't beautiful. And I hear endless people saying, I want to live in community. And yes, the question is, well, why isn't it happening? Why isn't there just billions of communities all over the country, whether in cities or in the countryside or, you know, whatever kind they are? And I believe there's one thread that is the reason why. And, you know, it isn't because we don't know how to dig holes. It isn't because we're not willing to put our hands in the earth and grow food, or it isn't because of financial resources. To some degree, like people often say, oh, I haven't got the money to buy into a community. I mean, there's another layer of financial resource, but at that level. And the reality is that this human wound we've got, what I call the soul wound, or we might say the core wound, because we weren't welcome, because of the not belonging, because of the exile, because of the discrimination, because of all of that, as soon as we come close to a circle of people. I mean, we only have to look at personal relationship to see that, you know, with one person, the closer you get to another human being, the closer you get to your wound. It's a simple equation. And navigating your wound with one person in a primary relationship is difficult enough, let's face it. Most of us can't even do that. Now put yourself in amongst, you know, 5 people, 10 people, 15 people in a room, and everybody's got their version of their soul wound. And if we haven't deeply done that work and deeply committed to continue doing that work, but not in some navel gazing, oh, let's all psychoanalyze ourselves till the cows come home. Unless we do that work, community can't happen. It just can't. It will fracture.